I'm Danielle with Scoots. We are a turtle and tortoise rescue here in the Jacksonville area. I'm going to teach you a little bit about turtles and tortoises today. So we have here Peter. He is a Gopher Tortoise that was found over at Peters Point in Fernandina Beach. Everybody say hi. So he's actually about ready to be released. He was hit in the fall. You can kind of see that there's some damage here along the top of the shell, also known as the carapace. It goes along the bridge and down around his foot and onto the bottom side of his shell, also known as the plastron. So this guy was hit by a car, and that's how he got his nice little damage. So he's all happy and ready to go. So in a few days he'll be going back out to Peters Point, so if you're ever out there, take a good look for him. So you might be asking yourself, well, what's the difference between a turtle and a tortoise? So tortoises are evolved to live on land. They have these nice, amazing arms with these claws. Can you guys see that? That's so he can dig, and his skin is nice and hard. That way water doesn't really leave his body the way a turtle would. So turtles have really thin skin so water can get in it, and it has more of a web shape or duck shaped foot. He's also not streamlined like a turtle. So turtles are streamlined to move through the water nice and quickly. He's kind of domed up and nice and hard. And that is because if you're a predator, let's pretend we are a coyote today. We want to eat him. It's going to be much harder if he's nice and high. It's going to be harder for us to eat him. So that's really great for him. So those are some of the small differences between turtles and tortoises. So Gopher Tortoise, a lot of us know what they are because we're so very lucky that we have so many here in the Jacksonville area. They love high and dry, just like me and you. Nobody likes a wet bottom, right? So they live in our scrub habitat, our uphill pines. So what they do, they're called a Gopher Tortoise, very similar to a gopher. So they love to dig a burrow. So their burrows can be as far deep as 12 feet deep. They typically tend to hit the water table and come back up. And they'll go as far along as 60 feet, which is pretty amazing. So sometimes these guys will dig multiple chambers. So it might have one hole, but multiple different areas. Perhaps one will be a latrine or bathroom, one will be a sleeping area, and a lot of times the gentlemen have a bedroom to entertain later on. So these guys are really, really important to our ecosystem. They serve as a commensal species to 361 different species in Florida. What that means is their burrow can be used as a home for all those other species. So some good examples is like rattlesnakes, or gopher frog, or perhaps an Anastasia beach mouse. They love to go in there and get away from the heat. They like to go in there when they have forest fires to get away. And they all live in harmony down there. It doesn't hurt the turtle at all to share his home. So a lot of the Gopher Tortoise's favorite food is something that you and I might think of as a weed in our yard. Prickly pear, always a good tasty treat. Frog fruit, they absolutely love this, especially when they're babies. And blanket flower, you often see this on the sides of the highway. So an interesting fact about turtles and tortoises is they are temperature sex determination. What that means is after the female lays in a clutch or a nest, they become male or female based on the temperature during that incubation. So if we pretend that my hand is the nest, down here on the bottom stays a little cooler, up here stays a little warmer. The ones on egg on the top tend to be a little bit warmer. The ones on bottom tend to be a little bit cooler. So the ones that are warmer the whole time are typically girls. The ones that are on the bottom are typically boys. So a great way to remember this is hot chicks, cool boys. So I told you here that Peter was a boy. So the way that I can tell this is he's about 10 years old, right when his sexual dimorphism starts. With tortoises, you can tell based on their plastron, or their bottom. So as you can kind of see, when I flip Peter over here, he has a small concavity where his shell is starting to dip in. As he gets older, that dip will continue and get bigger and bigger. So the whole reason he has that nice dip or that concavity is so he can fit on top of a lady. So often we get babies or juveniles in. So Colonel Mustard here was found lethargic and swollen, and that is because he got a ton of ant bites all over him. Unfortunately, this is a very common way for them to die. You can see this one looks pretty healthy, normal, but unfortunately it did have an encounter with a dog. So you can see that this one is missing its back right leg. So this is forever damage. So this is a really good example of why I urge all of you to keep an eye on your dogs whenever they're out in the yard, especially if you know you have gopher tortoises in the area. You can train your dog to not attack turtles and tortoises. I don't want to hear it's an animal, it doesn't know any better. Absolutely it does. You can train your dog. This shy little fellow right here had a very similar incident with a dog. So you can't really see it right now, but he's got some punctures back here. This leg is not moving, so I believe it's broken. And you can see this gular. This is this bone right here. Typically it would be on both sides. The gular was eaten by a dog. Unfortunately, again, this is permanent damage. So their shell is made out of keratin, the same thing that your fingernail is made out of. And yes, it can grow back in some aspects, but this gular will never be the same on both sides. It may harden up and get a little bit bigger, but never the same. So you might ask yourself, well, it's just a gular, it doesn't really matter. Unfortunately, this is very important if you're a male. They use this for competition over females. That is how they battle, is they use their gulars to hit each other in the throat. So unfortunately, if he grows up to be a male, he's more than likely never going to have that good of a competition with another male. So you might be wondering what happens once I get an injured gopher tortoise. So once they're able to go outside, and I know animals like flies and ants won't get to them, I put them outside in these pens so they can gain a little bit more strength before they go back out into the wild. We try to keep them as wild as possible. There's only one animal per pen. We plant all Florida native vegetation. We give him a nice little burrow or hide so he feels nice and protected the whole time. We do our best to be completely hands-off at this point because we would like them to still remain wild. So you might be wondering what to do when you see a gopher tortoise. So if you happen to see one walking in the road, the safest thing to do is make sure it's safe for you to get out of your vehicle. If so, pick up the tortoise and place it in the same direction it's heading. So if Peter here was in the middle of the road, I'd pick him up and place him on this side of the road. Please do not move him. Do not place him where you think is better habitat, because Peter does know best, and he will try to go home and cross any roads that you might have brought him over. So if you come across a turtle or tortoise that's injured, again, you might want to know what to do. So the first thing to do is obviously make sure it's safe for you to approach the animal. If he's in the middle of the road, make sure no cars are coming. When you see the turtle and tortoise, take a good look at where you are. Take a picture. Please note what street you are on, what house you're on. It's very, very important that these guys go back to exactly where they came from. Pick them up very carefully and please put them inside a box or a small container the same size the turtle is. The reason you want to do that is you don't want him to move around and become more injured and more stressed. A box is very similar to a burrow. It's nice and cool and quiet and dark. That's the best thing for the animal. So then, I recommend you give someone like me a call and say, hey, I have an injured gopher tortoise. What do I do? If you're in a time crunch or you don't have my number, you can always bring it to the Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens.